Good morning, you two. It's Miss Frohawk, ready to read you another story. I hope you had a lovely Easter bank holiday weekend. Today's story was chosen by Marzen, and it's called Paddington at the Carnival. Paddington looks a little bit like that. Right. One day, Paddington's friend Mr. Grubber took him on a surprise outing to a part of London known as Little Venice. It's called Little Venice because it's by a canal, he explained, and every spring they hold a big carnival. Boats come from all over the country to take part in the celebration. Paddington always enjoyed his days out with Mr. Grubber. He waved at one of the boats as it went past, and all of the people waved back. I've never been for a ride on a canal before, said Paddington. Who knows, said Mr. Grubber mysteriously. Perhaps you will before the day is out. But first of all, we must see what else is happening. We don't want to miss anything important. He pointed to a board showing all different events. But there were so many, Paddington didn't know which one to try first. How about the Busy Bee Adventure Trail, suggested Mr. Grubber. You have to find as many things as possible, beginning with the letter B. Paddington thought that sounded like a very good idea, especially Mr. Grubber told him the first prize was a free boat ride for two. Bears are good at trails, Mr. Grubber, he explained, looking around. He could already see lots of things, beginning with the letter B. Apart from the B for board, there was boy blowing bubbles, a man eating a bagel, and another with a broom, a barbecue, and a lady selling bananas. There were boats everywhere and lots of balloons. There was even a man playing a banjo in the band. Here's a picture of all the bees. There's the boat. There's the bubbles. And can you see the bananas? After Paddington had finished writing them all down, he and Mr. Grubber set off along the canal. In no time at all, Paddington had added 5 other items to his list. There was B for bridge, and then there was blackbird, buttercup, blossom, and butterfly. Can you see the blackbird, butterfly, blossom? What other words do you know that begin with the letter B? They hadn't got very far when they saw a lady feeding some ducks. She was wearing a bonnet, a blouse fastened with a net with a brooch, and around her wrist she wore a bracelet. Yes. When she saw Paddington, she smiled and said, "Would you like some?" "Thank you very much," said Paddington. He wrote down bag and bread, then raised his hat politely and said, "Busy Bee Adventure Trails makes me very hungry." "This is the sort of day out I like," Mr. Grubber, Paddington announced, as he took a jar of marmalade from his suitcase and began making a sandwich. "Amen, Mr. Brown," Mr. Grubber gave a cough. "I think you really meant to give the bread to the ducks." But before Paddington had time to arrive, there was a loud buzzing noise and something landed on his marmalade. Paddington gave the object a hard stare before adding the word B. Whereas Paddington eating marmalade bread that's probably meant for the ducks. Next they came up upon a nice man fishing. "I think you struck luck, Mr. Brown," whispered Mr. Grubber. He waited patiently while Paddington wrote down. Have a look at the picture. What do you think he was about to write down? The words beginning with B are bread, belt, buckle, boots, bucket, and basket. "Would you like to have a try?" asked the man. "You can use some of my worms if you like." Paddington thought that was a very good idea, but he wrote down B for bait. And bait is what you might put on the end of a fishing rod to encourage other fish to nibble on the end, and then the fish would get hooked onto the end, and the fisherman might then have caught the fish on his rope. "If you're going in for the busy bee competition," said the man, "you should watch out. There's a boy following you, and I think he's up to no good." Paddington was about to say thank you when he felt a tug on the fishing line. "I think it might be too big to go in my jar, whatever it is," he exclaimed. "It feels like W for whale." "I'm not sure you'll find any whales this far inland, Mr. Brown," said Mr. Grubber tactfully. All the same, to be on the safe side, Mr. Grubber tied some rope around his friend. So there's Paddington with some rope to keep him safe and not falling in, and he's yanking on that fishing rod. "Strike me pink," said the fisherman. "It's a bicycle." "Never mind," said Mr. Grubber. "At least it's another word for your list." You can use spot. Shortly afterwards they came up upon a little stretch of water with high banks and trees on either side. Paddington decided to have a go at riding the bicycle, but he soon discovered why it had been thrown away. "I think I'd better hold the other end, Mr. Grubber," he gasped, pointing to the rope still tied around his waist, "in case I fall in the canal." Mr. Grubber was about to explain that if he did that, there'd be nothing for anyone else to do to hold on to, when he saw the look on Paddington's face. "Is anything the matter, Mr. Brown?" he asked. "I think we're being followed by a B for bush," Mr. Grubber hissed Paddington. "Come back," shouted Mr. Grubber, "whoever you are." Meanwhile, Paddington added binoculars to his list. You can see the little boy's got some binoculars. While he was writing, a boat went past, and one of the passengers had a baby on their lap. She was feeding him a B for bottle. The baby was wearing a bib and his sister was holding a ball. Mr. Grubber sat down by the water while Paddington added up his list. All together with the bank and brambles next to Mr. Grubber, he had 41 things beginning with the letter B. Mr. Grubber looked at his watch. "I think it's time we go back, Mr. Brown," he said. "We don't want to be late for the judging." "Good luck," called the fisherman as they went past. "We shall be cheering you on," said the lady, feeding the ducks. "Has anyone collected more than 40 bees?" called the judge. I have, cried Paddington. He waved his piece of paper excitedly. I've got 41, he shouted. So have I, came the voice from nearby. Mr. Grubber looked over his shoulder. This list is exactly the same as young Mr. Brown's, he said sternly. You must have been copying it word for word. He doesn't look very impressed. Oh dear, said the judge. We can't have that. I'm afraid I shall have to stop the contest. It's all right, Mr. Grubber, called Paddington. We've won. I just thought of another B. That gives us 42. What do you think the B was? Fancy nearly forgetting the most important item of all, said Mr. Grubber as they set off on their boat ride. What made you think of it? I saw my reflection in the water, explained Paddington. Mr. Grubber nodded. It's often the hardest of all to see the things that are right under our nose, he said. It's as if you're a bee for bear, agreed Paddington. Bears have very long noses. It was dark by the time Paddington and Mr. Grubber arrived back, and the fireworks had already started. Mr. Grubber bought a packet of sparklers, and they stood on the bridge to watch. Paddington joined in with his own display. With his sparkler he waved. Thank you, Mr. Grubber, for a lovely day. In the excitement, the only person who noticed was Mr. Grubber himself, but that was really all that mattered. There we go. Well, I'll see you tomorrow for another lovely story, you two. Have a good rest of the day.